buongiorno, non...
I'm asked to go now, so I have a go. Thank you for inviting me to this conversation. It's good to convene with colleagues and talk about our experience of the last month and where we might be heading. I think nobody can really tell where we are going to go. And I would just like to say a couple of words, and I will be brief, about our experience here at the British Museum. We went into lockdown at the end of March. We had to shift everything onto digital during the lockdown. First of all, make sure that we were able to continue to work, moving our systems out of house, and then recalibrate our activities and making sure that we remain connected with our audiences. And we have 6 million, roughly 6 million visitors a year, many more via our website, internet, digital, social media. And it took a while to adjust to this, and then I think we all felt progressively comfortable in doing this. In the middle of the lockdown, we managed to launch collections online, which is a database that gives access to our collections to 4.5 million objects, which is more than half of our holdings, and which cover 2 million years of human history on all continents and all oceans. This has been a big moment with fabulous reactions. So looking at how we can retain our members, our audiences, I think we really had to rethink, based on what we've been doing over these last years, how to transform, if you like, data, facts, information into narratives, to be enticing, to be good short storytellers, because we all realized that even though we had big podcasts that lasted more than an hour and a half, that the things that really took off were no longer than 5 minutes. So all this went into this passage of rethinking the public institution museum in all its ramifications, in all its networks, into schools, into communities, into stakeholders, patrons, sponsors, benefactors, into government, into the scientific and the scholarly community, into academia, and then across the world. We had to rethink this, and I think it's fair to say that it was a very steep learning curve, and I think we made big strides ahead. We've had an enormous retention rate for members who, even though they could no longer access the collection, the museum, the exhibitions, stayed loyal and stayed and stood by us to go together through this calamity. And the same is true for government. We had to furlough, which is to say send home and take out of work up to 65% of our staff, while the others continued to work very intensely. And then, which was a means to support us, and then we moved into, the government then came up with a support package that takes us to the end of the financial year, end of March 2021. And what comes after, we'll need to see. You have to understand that our museum depends very much on, of course, on the government, but also on our commercial activities and on philanthropy. So you have roughly one third, and obviously 75% of our visitors coming from abroad, and tourism being gone. This has completely changed the overall situation for us. It's been a huge challenge, obviously, to maintain activities, but I must say that we've actually been quite successful. Also, in maintaining our international networks. The British Museum has projects on all continents. It works with communities, with institutions, with individuals in the area of cultural heritage protection and exploration, research projects, in mostly material, but also in immaterial culture. And we've seen during those 6 months of through the pandemic, the highest contribution ever from philanthropy for research projects and most of our collaborations. And just to give you one example, we've worked very closely with our partners in Nigeria over the last years, and we've now, last week, had the pleasure of having a big project to explore the pre-colonial past of Benin city of Edo State, announced by the governor of Edo State, which will allow our colleagues on their own behest to make a big leap ahead in re-exploring and reintegrating their own cultural heritage as they are moving towards building a new museum, which will then house important works from the Kingdom of Benin. As we move ahead, and I will quickly finish on that, a lot will depend, obviously, over the last year, 2 years, on regaining some degree of normalcy. And that obviously goes for the way we work together nationally, internationally. It also goes for our audiences that we hope will come back to London as soon as the immediate threat is overcome. But I think we've all understood, all colleagues that we've been in touch with, and of course the network of museum directors, curators, staff has worked really, really well. I think we've all understood that we've made a leap. This is a major shift that we're going through, and we will have to recalibrate how the museum gives access physically to its collections, whilst at the same time strengthening, enlarging, deepening everything it can communicate, everything it can share via digital. And I personally must say, I think this is a great leap. It's a very important development that offers new opportunities that, in a way, we had all hoped for and we've all been working for, sometimes for decades. But I think what we are seeing now is really a change of paradigm. And I very much look forward to exploring with colleagues, with the big minds that we are surrounded by, and with our international partners, how we're going to take this into the future and how we make sure that we'll be able, and I think that is really key, to share the knowledge that museums generate, how we can share the collection so we can make the objects circulate and underpin this and deepen this experience through digital. I personally deeply believe in the encounter with the object itself. I don't think digital will replace this ever, but it will give us means to expand the experience in unprecedented ways. And perhaps I'll leave it at that.
In generale, come possiamo condividere le collezioni, le opere e fare in modo che possano appunto...
Thanks so much, Director. Before I actually leave the floor to Mr. Osanna, I have a question for you. So this new challenge that you have, that you welcomed and that you have worked around also, will that change also the type of audience? So how do you believe that digital is going to impact the future, considering the potential new audience out there?
Is that a question to me?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is a question for you.
Yes, of course it will change, I think, the way we relate to objects, the ways we relate to heritage. It will have a very strong impact, and we see this already, on the ongoing debate about cultural heritage, about who activates cultural heritage in which way. And I think what we're witnessing is an explosion of attitudes, an explosion of points of view, of voices, which I think is very welcome. It will complexify the whole picture considerably, and it will globalize it. I think what we are seeing here is that more and more participants come into this discussion worldwide and share their thoughts, which has led us at the British Museum, as we plan ahead. We've developed a master plan for the museum to renovate the building and then redo the display. And the display, curating the new displays, will take place in the form of global co-curation, which is to say that, you know, the formidable colleagues here at the British Museum will team up with colleagues from around the world. They will activate their networks to work together on the many stories, not the one master story, the one master narrative, the many stories that this museum will tell in the future. And I think, you know, we, working with digital today is no longer simply information that you will then be able to share via screen, which of course in itself poses a big problem because it's a very monotonous format, if you like. It will go 3D. It has already started to go 3D. It will allow us to do facsimiles of unprecedented quality, and it will allow us to circulate objects in a new way. So I think what we are seeing is really a very profound passage into new territory, but I think we're only at the beginning of this.
Can I talk right now? Am I given the floor? Hey, Professor Osanna, you're actually online and you've been given the floor. You can start any minute. Oh, perhaps he's no longer there, unfortunately. Oh. Okay, can you hear me now? Um, I understand that I'm broadcasting, but there's no interaction, right? What am I supposed to do? Can I speak? Introduction then. I will then carry on with my short speech. I've been really struck by Hartwig Fischer, director from British Museum. I'm fully aligned with his approach and with his thinking also. So what is it happening in Italy right now, and what is it that we're trying to carry on with? Well, of course, you can't hear me. I am translating into English right now. Can you hear me? Test, sound check. Can you hear me? I am translating. So I will tell you more what
inclusione e dell'accessibilità, nel senso di fare in modo che i nostri musei siano sempre più aperti quindi da innanzitutto accessibili, ma questo è la
what we want to ensure is that museums can be accessed by everyone, and we don't want any barrier for disabled people. Just one example on top of many others, in Pompeii we have made available a route 3 kilometers in length where all disabled may actually access anytime. This is not enough, of course. When I speak about inclusion, it is a much broader inclusion rather than just allowing a small bit of Pompeii's pathways. We want everybody, actually, nobody to be excluded, and we want everybody to fully access premises and venues. And when it comes to the public and private partnerships, our museums shall be more and more open-minded to actually share with the private stakeholders, as our heritage is so much complicated to take care of. That is something that you cannot entrust to anybody else. So it's something that you have to take care of yourself. And there are many private players who are ready to step in with some special formulas, fully abiding by the current legislation in place. And for instance, if we consider the new legislation around contracting and subcontracting, well, that implies private and public partnership. Still, this is very difficult to translate it because our managers, our executives are not ready to take on this challenge. They're not ready from a mindset viewpoint. They are not, let's say, so good in transitioning towards this public-private partnerships ways that we have to go for. Another topic that is crucial to me has to do with staff. One of the key issues that museums are currently experiencing, and something that undergone a major revolution thanks to Franceschini and the new legislation from him. Well, on one side, our museums have become a truly European, international, with a solid governance. There's still a lot that we need to do. There's still great room for improvement when it comes to staff, which is key to museums. First of all, from a number viewpoint, we allowed many people to go for pre-retirement, and we've been short of staff immensely, first of all. But on top of that, we need skills. We need competencies. We need competent and expert people joining museums. Up until a few years ago, we were, let's say, hiring people according to some very old-fashioned ways and skills, whereas now people are very much requested to be fully prepared on many different items, many different topics. The last application, for instance, that was run for people working in museums also started to include how to be a good communicator, for instance, which is something that we never considered in the past. So we might have beautiful historians of art or absolutely super expert archaeologists, but maybe these people were not trained to be able to work in a museum and to be part of this important revolution in communication. We clearly understood that communication nowadays is key. Well, not only to disseminate about museums and about works of art we have, but also to invite people over and to invite as broad as an audience as we can. Let me just mention one example: Pompeii, Naples. Starting from 2014, when Project Pompeii was started, in a few years has doubled the visitors, but also turnover, shifting from 20 million up to 40 million coming from tickets only, and that fully relied upon pervasive and effective and successful communication, not only because it went through social media, because it went through many different social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and that was one thing, but also we were able to execute a number of regular, ongoing, and diversified actions to the point that a broadly diversified audience could actually access and visit Pompeii. So it goes without saying that staff, the way staff is trained, is crucial. We still lack many different roles in museum and as well as in archaeological sites. And I'm thinking about parks, for instance, Miramar in Trieste, Parco della Reggia di Caserta, and beautiful villas in Veneto, in Venice area. Beautiful parks over there. Unfortunately, they lack professional roles, officers, somebody who's expert in landscape designers, gardenings, and all this kind of things. So these are all huge gaps that if we want to transition museums into the future, we will definitely have to tackle. And this is just one out of the many different concerns and things that I'm thinking about today. And also how to make it more international. Well, of course, we must have an international attitude and vocation. That does not mean that we shall only speak to foreign directors, but we have to open up ongoing conversation through initiatives that are being led and managed by us. So through coordinating effectively actions, MOUs, which are stemming from this idea. And I'm thinking about British Museum. We just heard from the director. He's attending today. So when I say let's become international, it's just not only establish relationships and exchanging ideas and initiatives, research projects also, not only on a European level, but also on a worldwide level. Fischer mention the project in Nigeria, for instance, which was very interesting to hear about, and that is a clear example of what I mean. So places where there's a certain knowledge that has been reached out to in terms of how to protect, how to valorize the local heritage. Of course, we have to ensure that this awareness and knowledge also meets up with the same awareness and knowledge in the country we interact with, so that we may exchange ideas and research projects all together, up to engaging and involving literally all countries. From my standpoint, from Italy perspective, if you will, then archaeology has played a crucial role, of course. And archaeology has been crucial in the Mediterranean area. Of course, we have interacted with Turkey, Greece, and with the close eastern countries, and ongoing dialogue with those countries is crucial, so that we may share politics on and the best policies on how to protect this huge and valuable heritage. Unfortunately, for sake of time, I have to stop soon. I'm just taking another 2 minutes to say what we're currently doing and what I am currently doing as director, general manager of museums, something that we've been engaged and committed with many colleagues, with many different officers. Well, I'm thinking about the digital platform that we've implemented, because we understand digitization is crucial now. Platform, of course, stands out as a revolution for us. It has been let's say it has been launched, it has been implemented for first step a few days ago, but we literally expect to allow this platform to be fully functional and effective by year end at the latest. So we were able to launch this platform thanks to AGIT, Italian Agency for Digitization Activities. They made this wonderful job for us to have the platform in place. What is this about? Well, it works for the benefit of all museums in Italy, networking public museums all over Italy, but also on top of that, engaging in the same network also some small size venues and museums. So the minute it will be fully fledged, it will be very important, because it might also credit new museums through the minimum quality requirements that they need to abide by for them to access this new network, and then perhaps benefiting from regional, national funding. So first one is this crediting possibility, which is of course important. But on top of being credited, because as I said, we've literally just started, we will also have the possibility to give this enormous number of museums a common digital platform for people to access. And it will be a one-stop shop for everybody who wants to find out about museums. And on their side, the platform will share the new governance guidelines, and it might be also become a place for debate, for important debate, for people to network and have a conversation with the rest of the world, exchange ideas, real-time opinions about what's going on, and also when it comes to important decision making. So a common digital environment, which is what we aim for, and this is definitely a revolution for us, and it should be fully fledged by December 2021, as I said. So this way we would be able to transition into contemporary world, and finally museums will be able to live up to the expectations in terms of quality. But I'm happy perhaps to further explore this right after my speech. Thank you. Thank you, Director. I hope you can hear me. Yes, I can hear you. I can see you, but the minute you speak, I'm not able to actually react real time. Well, I have a question for you. You spoke about competencies and skills for staff, and that is crucial, of course, if we want to transition to digital and be out there in social media as well. Are you actually foreseeing some training classes, perhaps in agreement with universities, for people to acquire more of this missing skills? Well, you absolutely understood what I meant in my speech. Of course, not only we will start with the training classes soon, we started to train some of our people who are not literate from a digital viewpoint, and they were able, once they've started to work remotely, to actually be fully trained on a platform so that they could still carry on working and acquiring new skills when reopening would take place. When it comes to more of a broader training vocation, well, that is something that we are currently working on. We are organizing a team of people who will deliver training around the platform so that all potentials are being fully exploited. And we're currently working with Turetta, General Manager for Research and Training at the Ministry.
So thank you for inviting me. In fact, for Parisian museums, the shock of this global pandemic is reminiscent to the one in 2015, provoked by the wave of terrorist attacks that took place in France at that time. This episode in 1915 severely affected visitor numbers and had a lasting effect on the mode of access to our establishments, which required increased control. The pandemic and its impact will have long-term consequences. The complete cessation of visitor numbers, widespread home working, slow activity, the closure of shops and restaurants, the interruption of our transport, and the consequent rise in cost, and especially a profound economic crisis of unknown duration. The Orangerie Museum received 1 million visitors in the year of 19. Its own resources constitute 60% of its budget, of which 40% by ticket sales. 60% of its public is international. It was therefore greatly affected by the sanitary situation, by lockdown, and the total emptying of public places. Like all the big French museums, it benefited from an exceptional aid from the state, which allowed for works to be paid and to maintain the exhibition program. We therefore pushed back until fall the exhibition Giorgio de Chirico Metaphysical Painting, originally scheduled for March 20, by shifting the entire exhibition program. I must say that exchanges with colleagues from across the world, and particularly in Italy, for this exhibition were both kind and considerate. We also set back the reopening of the collection's renovated galleries. We can speak of a French model or even a larger European model when evoking the state's huge support of public patrimonial institutions. This crisis have has provoked many reactions and a certain awareness, from rhapsodic visions of the end of the world announcing the death of traditional museums to the questioning of social blockbusters and mass tourism, a demand for societal positioning and cultural politics, has seen in the American museums confronted with movements such as Black Lives Matter or Me Too, exacerbated by the COVID crisis, and finally, greater concern for ecological issues of museums faced with the thermal inertia of their buildings, the question of recycling exhibition materials and office equipment. In short, these times have revealed a vast and deep cultural and political crisis, which also touches museums. It seems to me that within this context, it's important to be precise and nuanced. There are many museums, each with very different, such as Black Lives Matter or Me Too, exacerbated by the COVID crisis, and finally, greater concern for ecological issues of museums faced with the thermal inertia of their buildings, the question of recycling exhibition materials and office equipment. In short, these times have revealed a vast and deep cultural and political crisis, which also touches museums. It seems to me that within this context, it's important to be precise and nuanced. There are many museums, each with very different economic models, a very great plurality of exhibitions, and numerous different kinds of visitors. The successive lockdowns have led us to multiply and invent our digital content as alternatives to visits of exhibition and of our collections. This almost exclusive use of video conferencing has made meetings and exchanges possible without leaving the home. These tools will inflect our thoughts toward more sophisticated versions of virtual reality, towards the exhaustive use of shared digital portals, and our working methods, less international travel, a greater fluidity in our exchanges. The digital event, if it does not replace the visit, widens our audience and will very certainly include a pay offer. More profoundly, the economic crisis should bring a significant halt to an expansionist vision, the colossal enlargement or creation of museums, a politics of mass tourist attractions, aggressive branding, and in particular create difficulties for operators without a collection. In France, operators such as RO.ME or Culture Espace are known for organizing mainstream exhibitions banking on the big name of Western art and bringing together works from across the world. The high cost of transport and insurance are offset by ticket sales. This model doesn't work with the current necessity of reducing visitor numbers, of respecting the environment, and thinking in a more inclusive fashion in the general public and local partners. For all this, should we call into question exhibitions organized by museums with important collections? There are places of heritage and cultural identity which should play a key role in these uncertain times. They can become places where we can re-examine our communal values. The markers.
Questo ovviamente ci fa ripensare a come organizzare le mostre di quelle collezioni così importanti. Abbiamo un patrimonio, abbiamo un'identità culturale che dovrebbe continuare a...
Okay. So again, our places or heritage museum can become places where we can re-examine our communal values, the markers that form the basis of our social community. It is possible that the entertainment or festive aspect of events in our museums, which have been
Cécile, sorry, go ahead, please.
And clear picture of the history of art to the young in order to equip them in a world invaded by images. The museum is a civic place. The subjects tackled in its exhibition must resonate with current issues. For example, the Musée d'Orsay is preparing a big exhibition on the origins of the world, dealing with Darwinian theories and the scientific and cultural understanding of nature from the modern era, in line with the exhibition on the Black model from Géricault to Matisse, which focused on the place of Black people in Paris during the 19th and 20th centuries, or an exhibition such as Prehistory, a Modern Enigma at the Centre Pompidou. These exhibitions studied current societal issues in the light of work from their collection. The exhibitions organized in the frame of important collections can indeed reduce their costs by bringing together works from their stock and by their transversal and multidisciplinary character create partnerships with neighboring institutions, the Museum of Natural History, the National Museum of Prehistory, the Quai Branly Museum, etc., namely a tendency toward tighter, more local circuits. Thank you.
Grazie Cécile, una domanda anche per lei.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear anything.
Hello. Yes, can you hear me? I'm repeating the question. So one of the key activity that you're dealing with that is a scheduling, because you tend to schedule things today happening in 22, 23. But the pandemic has generated uncertainty. So how are you coping with current uncertainty when it comes to scheduling?
Yes, of course, it's pretty difficult to schedule now our exhibition, but I think we have succeeded in maintain our programmation, just shifting, our exhibition, and I must say that. Everybody, our colleagues and museum colleagues, all of in the world are very generous and very in mood to help us each other. So we succeeded in maintaining all our programmation. Of course, we don't know if we will have a third lockdown in winter, in February perhaps, but we hope that we could present our exhibition. I mean, for the Chirico exhibition, people could see it only during 1 month, but it's like this, and it was a success. And then this winter we will have an exhibition on Magritte and Renoir, which will be open in beginning of February, and we hope that we could open.
Molte grazie.
Many thanks. A quick round table. Speaking to Fischer to start with, if he can tell us about the Museum of the World, which is a very one-off, a one-of-a-kind example of how the pandemic was tackled by a large worldwide institution.
Been contested. So the museum has actually moved from, say, crisis to crisis. And the crisis is always a moment of definition, redefinition, asserting the priorities. And I think that's exactly what we are living now. Thinking about paradigms, thinking about our ideological fundamentals, and being challenged and being called out, obviously, by a younger generation, which I think is very beneficial. Which leads to the second point, which Massimo made, about inclusion. And I think that is absolutely right, and we need to use all these means, and Cécile has pointed to this too, saying, with less visitors coming from abroad, we have a chance to highlight the importance for more local or national audiences, which is what the British Museum has always done. And we have worked, and we keep working, with a partnership of 150 museums across the country, which I'm sure the two of you do too. The other point, inclusion means you need to reach out. Inclusion does not simply happen because you say, we're here, come in. And I have to say, the reactions of our visitors are, we can't wait to be back. We want to re-engage with the objects. We want to revisit the museum. So the need, the desire, the passion for that place is undiminished. It is there. Inclusion requires reaching out. You need to go out there. You need to find access to parts of the population who have no access, who don't think the museum is for them, who don't think they find their kin, people that they connect to inside the museum. So I think this is yet another moment for the museum to really understand and assume its responsibility as a public institution. And Cécile has pointed to some of the areas, and there are obviously many more we could talk about, of the role of a museum to help people to understand what they are living through and how they can shape it, how they can gain agency. And my last point, I think it's extremely important. I'm not saying this only because the British Museum is a museum, which obviously in its collections covers all continents and 2 million years of human history. It's extremely important that we do not let the current challenge or predicament, if you like, even though I'm not inclined to go into apocalyptic visions. The challenges. Don't let the challenges limit our reach. Let's not renationalize the museums. Let's keep those international networks open, from communities of research, high-end scholarly activity, to the widest possible public. We see borders coming up. We see conflicts rising. We see the threat looming that the world is going to be broken up into areas. And I think museums today also have the task to make everybody understand that that is not the right path into the future. And Cécile is talking about the environment, for instance, but also questions of justice and fairness. Black Lives Matter, Me Too, has pointed to that global debate. And we are part of those global debates. We are agents. We are participants. We shape. We contribute to shaping that debate. And I think museums have to do that. And they have to maintain that global dimension. That, I think, is part of their mission.
Grazie direttore, staremo tutta la mattina ad ascoltarla. Io nel dare la parola invece al professor Osanna a chiudere questo nostro panel, volevo ricordare che la tecnologia aiuta anche un po'. Oggi stamattina c'erano 2100 persone collegate, oggi in questo momento ce ne sono circa 1500 e ci sono 3 conferenze in contemporanea. Probabilmente ci sarebbe voluta la nuvola qua a Roma come centro congressi per ospitarle tutte se non avessimo questa tecnologia. Quindi grazie direttore, staremo tutta la mattina ad ascoltarla.
Thank you so much, Director. I would listen to you the entire day if I only could. And in recognizing that technology is helping us, we had some 2,000 people connected, and right now we're having 1,500 people listening to us. There are 3 conferences going on at the same time. Perhaps it would have been very difficult to welcome all these people attending in person. So thank you, technology. Let's perhaps pay some tribute to it. Let's say, because it has allowed also art and culture being closer to people. But of course, we need skills. I'd love to leave the floor to Massimo Osanna to close works. Yes, with the except of the first bit, I was listening to you. Thank you so much for leaving the floor to me to draw conclusions. I'd love to go back briefly to this global debate that has been mentioned now. I would say that also through digitization, the global debate is becoming increasingly easy and possible and viable. With the except a few problems, it has made it possible for us to speak today. I am happy that I can listen from my colleagues. I'm happy that I was given their vision on crucial aspects, and I'm really willing for that to be carried on. I've had a private conversation preliminary to this event with Mr. Fischer, and we were sharing how important it is, in my view, to carry on with international exchange of ideas, not only for research and projects, but first and foremost, ideas. We had organized this event in Planetarium in Rome, so that there were 2-3 museums actually having a debate in Rome around what's going on. And I hope this is still going to be the case. Perhaps we can make it more international. I do trust the debate amongst players from the museums industry, so that we can welcome, grab, capture trends, ideas and insights coming from wherever else in the world. And I believe that here in Rome, and this is what I'd love to do in 2021, perhaps to organize ongoing meetings with protagonists of culture, of the cultural industry, a director of museums, to mention one example, curators, people in charge of custody of monuments, installations, and so on, not only on a European level, but very much coming from all over the world, because actually some parts of the world have experienced a much more dramatic history. Considering Iraq or Syria, they have an archaeological heritage which is second to none, and that is also crucial for our own European identity. So let's network, absolutely, and let's let's make it through virtual meetings, if this is the case now. Of course, when the pandemic is over, it will be absolutely crucial for us to meet because of the passion that we experience when having a physical contact with object. And I'm thinking also about my project in the planetarium. So we will have to be able to actually combine material and digital all together the minute we can resume our normal life. And I'm sure people listening to me fully understand what I'm talking about. So let's carry on with this global debate. And in 2021, I would love to launch a worldwide initiative, something that I've discussed with my Greek colleagues, and that will include conferences, exhibition, webinars around the Greek Roman culture, and how that Greek and Roman culture has impacted and still heavily influences our daily life, from writing to art, from methodology to psychoanalysis, and philosophy, of course. So I'd love for 2022, I would very much love, and starting in 2021, of course, starting to work on the great influence that Greek and Roman cultures have delivered, well, to Middle Age, Renaissance, and then contemporary world. This would allow to network museums, irrespective of platforms, promoting some new initiatives in small museums and largest museums, because I'm sure this can be of interest for everybody. Thank you so much for the kind attention. Thank you, Director. And this would have, of course, a geopolitical value also, not only historical one. Okay, I would invite our listeners, the audience, to browse around this important exhibition from other rooms. Thank you, Mr. Bigli, for opening words this morning. Thank you, Massimo Osanna, General Director of Museums and Cultural Heritage, Hartwig Fischer from British Museum, and Cécile Debray from Musée de l'Orangerie. So speak to you later. Thank you so much for your kind attention so far.